Alright, dear Jonathan, you might notice I'm wearing a different shirt, but I actually am recording this right after the first video, but I changed my shirt and changed some things in the background to make it look like I recorded separately. But you know, doubling up, twice the content at half the time price. Okay, so let's talk about another of these banks. Let's talk about bank number 1, compression. Compressor slash FX1. So, right, we have all these different banks. Maybe this is where we just start talking about signal flow. So we have, coming out of our instrument, we have an electrical signal that's being picked up by the pickup on our instrument, the vibrations of the bridge. It's going out, getting turned into an electrical signal, going into the board, and then it's getting kind of going through stations almost, and getting affected by each station. So, and in the manual, there's a whole layout of the signal flow, how it goes from component to component. But essentially, right, let's just say we've talked about the preamp before. The preamp is that first one it's going to go through, it's going to get that main coloration, and then it'll go into this next bank, the compressor slash FX1. And so, once again, now we have a whole new host of knobs to play with. So let's go through each of these. And again, I only know about some of these, and the other ones I'm just kind of reading, but we can experiment. So, as a reminder, here's kind of our default. This is our, I'm just on the AC preamp modeling for the clean acoustic guitar style preamp with the treble at 3 o'clock, everything else just right at noon. There we are. So let's look at, if we're down here kind of at, 6:30 or 7 o'clock, the compressor comp. So compression, right? This super important concept from, from the guitar family of instruments, because when you think about guitars, right, they don't have a bow, so when they let the note rip, it just has a natural decay, kind of like our pizzicato. And so compression, from what I've learned and read, became this really important thing, because compression, what it's basically doing is if you have your sound wave, right, that when you pluck a note, it spikes up, and that's it's called the transients, where it spikes up and then it decays slowly, that waveform. What compression does is it boosts everything, so let's say it doubles the size of that whole waveform, and then chops off the extremities, so that what you're left with is a more solid, thick band of waveform that doesn't taper as quickly. That the compressor, what it does is it's able to boost the gain of the signal, so it's louder, and then actually hold on to that signal so that it stays louder for longer. So think of it, compression allows guitarists to make their playing more legato, kind of like what we can naturally do with our bows. So it's, I think, less of a thing for us, but something to keep in mind is that compression, because it's a gain boost, it's making everything louder. And so in a way, compression, a lot of time when producers and guitar players are talking about it, compression is used to smooth out a performance. You might think that in vocals, right, if I was having a really uneven amount of dynamics where some notes or words are really loud and others are kind of soft, right, compression would, by boosting everything and then chopping off the extremities, kind of makes the soft things a little bit louder and makes the loud things kind of chops off those ends, so everything's a bit more even. So even for us, it might be something to play around with, but let's see what happens. So, and let's turn all of our little sub knobs all the way up to 12 o'clock, just so we can hear what this neutral thing sounds like. So again, clean sound and compression. So right now, it kind of just sounds like a gain boost, right? It's like, okay, it gets louder. But let's also listen to how it affects plucking. So if we take this off, and especially listen to the tail end. All right, now let's try compression. Hear how long it's actually holding on to that. Holds on to that note, so it actually sustains longer. So if, right, imagine you're a guitarist. So a couple of these knobs, right? If we look at, there's all these little sub levels because it's affecting different things. But above the knobs, we have sustain, attack, and level. So the sustain is going to be how long it holds onto it. So let's just make that really extreme. Whoa. And so you can already hear what the sustain is doing. I think that this is just the amount of input gain it's jacking into the compressed signal, so that even when things are softer, it's louder to create sustain. So let's see. So actually this is a super good example, right? You can hear, when I first pluck it, you can hear how clipped that sound is, that it suddenly, you can hear how the extremities of that waveform are really chopped off. It suddenly feels really kind of like a half of a sound. But then as the sound would decay, and as normally you would hear the sound die away, you can hear how the compressor is actually uplifting that sound and keeping it loud. And you hear the noise, actually, the background noise starts to creep back in. So one more time. Really interesting, right? So you can actually, it's trying to add so much gain that all that, the white noise, right? You can even, maybe not. But it's just jacking the gain of so much to try to preserve that signal. So if we turn that way down, right, we can have something a bit more natural. Let's talk about attack. So attack, and actually if we keep this up, the attacks, this refers to the attack speed, how quickly the compressor squashes that signal to try to, to keep the excessively loud stuff down. Because sometimes if we have the attack speed, well, let's see, is that high or low? I think this must be high. Honestly, I'm still learning to hear this stuff myself. But the attack speed basically is, does it immediately squash it, or does it kind of like smooth it out over, it's usually, within milliseconds. So it's like 500 milliseconds is how long it takes for the compressor to kick in. Probably we aren't going to use this too much, so let's just leave that at 12 o'clock. But the level is going to be, you're going to hear that, right? How much post-compression gain does it kick in? Because typically what happens is you will add gain to the compressor so that, as we did with that first knob, so that more gain is being sent into the compressor, right? So the soft things are become louder and can get sustained longer. But then what that's doing, right, is that the loud sounds, everything is also getting squashed because you're chopping off the extremities. So then what you do is you add some makeup gain back into it after the compressor to get things back up to level. So that's compression 101. Again, I don't think we would use this that much unless maybe we're doing some really interesting pizzicato stuff. So it'll help even like something like this out. Right, it helps smooth it out between chords. So maybe we'd use something like that and play with those knobs. All right, let's leave compression. Let's go further. These are kind of some fun toys. So I'm not sure what the T stands for, but wah up and wah down. This is going to add a wah effect based on the velocity of the attack that you put into it. With velocity meaning the dynamic, I guess. Like a high velocity is a really sharp attack, and a low velocity is like a so this is kind of fun. So let's listen to this. Easier to hear with the arco. So that's kind of the wah sound, which we can also get with this expression pedal later, but this is kind of a fun way. So that's the wah up, and then we've got wah down, which is a very different sound. Remember, it's velocity dependent. it's kind of a fun, jokey little sound. Who knows? Octave, important pedal. Very important for you, Jonathan, especially. This adds an octave down to your sound. So, especially with Pizzicato. Clutch. So this is actually where some of these things might come to effect. Let's see these. So these frequencies are gonna affect the volume of the octave. Okay. So this middle one is affecting the amount of that lower octave sound that comes through. And then there's a sub-octave. Do you hear that? Ooh, that's sweet. Right, so if we turn this one up, we actually can't really hear that sub-octave, but... Oh, that is... Oh, actually, okay, you see that? There it is. Sorry, Jonathan. Here we go. So we're actually looking at the upper text. So -1 octave, and then also -2 octave right there. So we do have -2 octaves. We can mix those two sounds, and then we also have how much of our original sound is coming through. So we can actually turn off our original sound entirely, so it's just the octave. And let's just do the second octave down. Funky. So, super important for you, Jonathan, to get to know that octaver especially. There's a couple other spots where we can get some octave presence, but I think this is going to be a main way. Slow gear, this is a thing for guitarists to imitate string instruments by taking off the attack, the transients of their stuff, so it kind of sounds weird when you have... Here, that's kind of wah, wah. But interesting with Pizzicato, right? Because now it takes off the... Maybe combined with some other things, we can get some cool... it's kind of like... almost like a reverse sound. Where you can take off that initial attack. I think... all these parameters will affect exactly the speed of how much it's taking off at the beginning, but that's the general sound. Defrauder, I'm actually not sure what a defretted guitar sounds like, but this is apparently imitating a defretted guitar. Funny, because we don't have frets anyway. Well, I don't know much about that one, but you can experiment. Hey. Alright, ring modulation. This is more of a sound effect, but it simulates this effect called ring modulation, which is more complicated than I know how to explain, but you can hear the sound. The bells toll. Right, so it's more of a sound effect than anything. There's some kind of fun stuff you can do with ring modulation. Let's keep moving. This one is good, the ACSim. So this is simulating, if you have like an electric guitar plugged in, it's trying to simulate an acoustic guitar, and it's doing some like EQ stuff but basically, with Pizzicato, it sounds like an acoustic instrument. Really nice. And with the Arco, it's a little bit less convincing, but it's still good. And again, this is with the preamp treble at 3 o'clock. Let me bring that back to noon. So a little bit less I don't know, if we're looking for a way to simulate acoustic on electric, there might be a combination of things, and this ACSim might be part of it, but for Pizzicato, oh, that is sweet. So good stuff there. Single to hum and hum to single is using this weird thing called like the Hucklebuckler or something, which I have no idea. I don't know what it's doing, but some weird stuff there. And then solo is apparently, it's just some sort of, it might be using some sort of compression, that's why it's in this rack, but apparently, you know, they say combine this with overdrive and the preamp to have a sound for solos. It just sounds like it's making it louder and some distortion. With some parameters here to control. Not my cup of tea, necessarily, but so I think the main ones here on compression are learn the compressor. That's important, and maybe watch a couple of videos because compression is just a very bedrock principle in everything with electric music. Learn the compressor, definitely. Learn the octave. And also the ACSim. Those are probably, I would say, the most useful ones for our work within Compression FX1. Have fun!